Across parts of Europe and more limited context in the United States, we have learned that there are a number of so-called Sharia-based tribunals that purport to resolve family and other civil disputes using Sharia-centric principles.
Well, across the United States have existed for at least several decades. The number of cases that they've been handling appears to be increasing. A lot of the formalities that we as lawyers do in American courts simply do not exist.
So in a Sharia-based system, there is a real risk that people engaged in that would be losing due process and equal protection rights. Is that fair?
Yes, it's almost guaranteed.
I now recognize the gentlelady from Wyoming.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here today. In August 2025, an Austrian court issued a ruling confirming an arbitration award based explicitly on Islamic Sharia law. In the specific case, a contract was signed by two men that mandated that an arbitration tribunal would resolve conflicts based on Sharia law. The arbitration tribunal, after a conflict arose, later decided against one of the two men and forced him to pay $320,000, and the decision was upheld by the Vienna Regional Court for Civil Matters. The European Center for Law and Justice highlights examples in Europe where Sharia law has been legally applied, including in Greece, where under the 1923 Treaty of Lausanne, citizens who are Muslims and residents in Western Thrace have used Sharia law as a parallel legal system for private law. We know that it has also happened here in America, and Mr. Gillet, I'd like to turn to you. Across parts of Europe and more limited context in the United States, we have learned that there are a number of so-called Sharia-based tribunals that purport to resolve family and other civil disputes using Sharia-centric principles. To your knowledge, how far back have some of these tribunals been permitted to operate in the United States and across Europe?
Across Europe, I can't speak to as well. Across the United States, have existed for at least several decades. Certainly, the number of cases that they've been handling appears to be increasing, and that increasing appears to be accelerating. One of the difficulties in monitoring this is that typically only appellate court decisions are reported.
Right.
So you would only truly find out about it if there was an arbitration, if the arbitration award was in challenge in a district court. Sometimes those are reported, but normally it'd only be reported if the appeal then went up to an appellate court. So it's very hard to get good data.
Well, could you explain the process by which a family dispute, for example, may be resolved in a Sharia law applied setting in contrast to what we would expect to see in an American family court proceeding?
Sure. Typically, you would begin with an Islamic mar, which is an Islamic marriage contract. That contract would be signed normally before the marriage. Then during the marriage, if a dispute arose between the couple, they would then, one of them would approach the Sharia tribunal, typically an imam, sometimes an attorney, sometimes not. Sometimes not an imam, but commonly imams would then essentially adjudge it. They would typically not be most of the formalities within American law, so you wouldn't have, for example, a court reporter recording everything down. You wouldn't always have formal pleadings. Sometimes it'd be as simple as basically a meeting. And then there would be a ruling. Those rulings aren't always necessarily placed in clear judgments. So a lot of the formalities that we as lawyers do in American courts simply do not exist in those
Well, and I
systems.
think that that's very important because due process and equal protection are foundational tenets guaranteed under the United States Constitution and most state constitutions. And they are available to every American citizen who engages with the judiciary or seeks legal relief. Mr. Gillet, based on what knowledge there is of how Sharia tribunals operate both in Europe and to a more limited extent in America, are there risks of participants, notably women and minors, losing due process protections and equal treatment in a Sharia-based system?
Yes, those risks are quite significant. They've manifested themselves in the few appellate cases we've been able to see. And the remedies for those are not that difficult. I mean, states can either ban the arbitration of family law matters, particularly custody. Some states have done that for decades, often blue states more than red states. Additionally, there's a model act that's been put out that would create some thresholds that the reviewing court would then be able to look at the basis of the decision of the court. In the case of custody, they would look, or other child matters for visitation, they'd look at the best interest of the child. Currently, in many states, Texas particularly being one, those safeguards do not exist.
So why are women and minors more at risk in a Sharia-based tribunal system?
Primarily for two reasons. One, Sharia law tends to be discriminatory against women, particularly compared to modern American law. Secondly, Sharia law does not require any analysis of the best interest of the child. Normally, custody is based, depending on what exact school of Sharia is being applied. Custody is normally based on the age of the child, and based on the age, the child will be given to one of the two parents.
So in a Sharia-based system, there is a real risk that people engaged in that would be losing due process and equal protection rights. Is that fair?
Yes, it's almost guaranteed, particularly on the equal protection side.
Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Gillette. Thank the gentlelady from Wyoming, and I'll now recognize the gentleman from Wisconsin for 5 minutes.
Thank you. First of all, I want to respond to something that was said earlier. Every weekend I get home and I meet, different people around my district. Maybe I attend Republican Party events, maybe church groups and their fundraisers, American Legions, Lions Clubs, Rotary Clubs, and just random people when I sometimes just go door to door. I have yet to find one person who is a self-avowed or even unself-avowed Christian nationalist. I've just never met that person. And nevertheless, for whatever motivation, I think to be divisive and I think to run down this country in the eyes of our immigrants, I think that's what their motivation is. The Democrats keep talking about these mystery people. And I would think that if they existed, sooner or later, I would at least run into one of those people, but I've yet to run into any. So I just want to make that point in case we may have, new arrivals in this country who might think when President Biden and various Democrats talk about this huge movement in this country, they know that at least I have yet to find one person who fits the bill. Okay. Now, Mr. Spencer, you were cut off before. I'm going to give you just a few minutes. Is there anything you wanted to say that weren't able to say when you were cut off?
Be honest with you, I don't remember when the last time I was cut off was, so.
Okay. I'm from Wisconsin, and in Wisconsin we have a military base called Fort McCoy. And there are a huge number of people who on very short notice inundated Fort McCoy. Eventually, federal prosecutors charged a couple of the Afghans who were there with serious crimes, sexual assault of a minor, committing domestic violence. I felt in any event that these incidents underscored how inadequate vetting happened before all these people were put in Wisconsin. But in any event, do you know about how many Afghans did the Biden administration bring to the U.S.?
Oh, I believe it was about 85,000.
I'll help you. My cheat sheet here says 200,000. Is that
Okay, I'm sure that that's much more accurate. In any case, vetting was essentially non-existent. These were people who were, for the most part, not people who helped us in Afghanistan, but that was by the acknowledgement of Alejandro Mayorkas, that they were people who didn't have the special immigrant visas that were given to people who aided us there. And what's noteworthy about the people who were arrested at Fort McCoy is that they said they didn't know that they were violating American law when they molested these young people because what they did was legal in Afghanistan. And that is an indication in microcosm of the dangers of bringing over Sharia-adherent Muslims. They are adherents of a legal system and cultural mores that are radically different from American law, and if we allow this, they will strip protections from all kinds of people who will be their victims.
Okay. This did have serious and tragic consequences, didn't it, by not vetting these folks?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch
This did have serious consequences, not vetting these folks?
Absolutely. Well, that's one example is the Afghans who were arrested at Fort McCoy, but there's also the fact that ISIS, as well as the Taliban and Al-Qaeda, are quite active in Afghanistan. So you bring over a lot of Afghans without any vetting. You're bringing over almost certainly ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and Taliban operatives who believe that they have a responsibility before Allah to wage jihad in the infidel land. And that's going to be something we're going to be seeing the consequences of for years to come.
Okay, what can Congress do to strengthen laws to prevent this type of mass importation of unvetted aliens?
Well, for one thing, vetting would be in order. And that needs to be intelligent and thorough, comprehensive vetting. That is not just, are you a member of a terrorist group, which is what it's been for years, but something, questions that are much more specific, that will tease out attitudes and then make it a deportable offense to lie when you're answering these questions.
Okay, any one of the three of you on the right side of me, are we right now actively tracking instances of Sharia law and the patterns of places where it's most prevalent? If I Google it, am I going to find something on that?
To my knowledge, the United States government is not doing that whatsoever. The Center for Security Policy attempted that a couple of decades ago, basically looking through Louisiana appellate cases. They're able to find dozens upon dozens. I've been trying to monitor it. It is very difficult to monitor because first of all, arbitration tribunals are not reported. Most district court cases are not reported at the state level. And properly using the search engines to tease out the cases at the state appellate level is tricky.
The gentleman's over his time. Did the other two want to quickly answer that question since he addressed all three of you? But just quickly, do you know anything additional to add?
That's exactly what I was going to say, that
Okay.
the U.S. government's not doing this.